Hello, and welcome to the second episode of Forces Employment Charity, the podcast. I am Catherine Slata, and throughout our podcast series, we explore the incredible stories, insights, and resources that empower service leavers, veterans, reservists, and their families in their quest for meaningful careers and fulfilling lives. We delve into the many ways we offer unwavering support, from bridging veterans and military families with job opportunities to providing invaluable training and resources. In today's episode, we embark on a very captivating exploration of the entrepreneurial landscape within the armed forces community while navigating the challenges and triumphs of self employment. We are joined today with two very extraordinary women, Hannah Saunders and Helen Massy, to unravel the stories behind their ventures and personal journeys. Welcome, Hannah and Helen. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'd just like to start by getting to know both of you a bit more, if that's okay. So, Hannah, you are an ex RAF officer. Am I saying that right? Is it RAF or is it RAF officer?
I would say RAF. If you're short on time, we could say RAF. Yes, yeah. So I was in the RAF for 9 years. Predominantly worked in sort of HR, although military HR is very different. But worked with people, which was fascinating, and luckily got my HR masters in that time as well. Which, when I came to leave and then became an entrepreneur, was incredibly helpful. So yeah, I was in the RAF and was an HR officer, and then I came to leave about 5 years ago now, when I had an idea to start my own business. It's always something I sort of wanted to do, but the opportunity sort of came to me during maternity leave when my son would get very sensitive skin, and it was a skincare company that I eventually started. And I also didn't want to deploy away from my child anymore. I'm sure some others can relate to that. It's a really hard thing to try and balance. So yeah, so I came to leave and start my own business back in 2017.
Was that after Dragon's Den or before? Where does that fall in the timeline?
Yeah, so about 2017, 2018 is when I sort of officially started the business, and we went through an initial investment round, a seed round, which was 200K to get us off the ground. So because we're a skincare company, fast moving consumer goods generally to work are made at scale. So I needed significant investment to essentially make all that stuff. And if you launch a skincare company, you generally have to launch a brand. So I wanted to just start out with a lip balm because my son would have really sensitive lips. That's how it all started. I started making that in my kitchen. But we quickly realized we needed a range to have real impact on the market. So we made hand sanitizers, sun creams, insect repellents, bite and sting relief. Skincare for the outdoors, for adventures, essentially was the brand, helping you have those sort of family adventures outside, get them away from screens, live your best life. So yeah, we went through an investment round. Then we made the products, the first range, and then the pandemic hit, which was March 2020, and we were mainly set up for business to business trade sales, and all of those died. So then I pivoted to e-commerce. Things started to go quite well because we sold two different sorts of hand sanitizer. So our first year sales exceeded expectation. And then Dragon's Den called me. They trawl LinkedIn. I think they're obviously have an ear to the ground of the startup world. Called me, did I want to go on? It wasn't really something I particularly wanted to do or needed to do at that point, but I never turned down an opportunity. So I said, okay. I auditioned, and then about 3 months after that, I went into the den and filmed it. So that was about 2 years on from inception to actually going in the den, and then obviously that went quite well. So
Very good.
yeah,
Yeah, they dubbed you the most prepared entrepreneur to ever enter the den as well.
they did. That was
Um,
very kind. The BBC and the Sun um, said I was the most prepared, which I absolutely attribute to my military background. I treated it like going into brief, sort of the harshest senior officers I ever had to go in and brief, and other military people will know what that's like. And if they say you've got 2 minutes, you've got 2 minutes. You need to get all the information across in a succinct manner. You can't give too much of your opinion. Often it has to be fact based, has to be well evidenced. So I very much treated it as though I was going in, and I've also been on the receiving end of grillings from senior officers. If I've been in charge of a project, they make you think of the second, third order effects. What about this? What about that? So it was very similar, which is quite fortunate because I feel that I had a really good, yeah, I feel like I had a good idea of how sort of pressurized it was going to be in there. I had a spreadsheet of 70 different numbers, which I learnt over the course of sort of 2-3 weeks prior. So they kept trying to catch me out on numbers, but I kept throwing them back.
Amazing. Woohoo. Well done, you.
Thank you.
And Helen, what about you? You are a military spouse, a mother of three, an award-winning writer, and you've kind of, you founded the Career Pursuit. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've been a military spouse for over 20 years now, believe it or not. It doesn't seem possible. And actually, my background's in the NHS. So I worked in the NHS for over a decade. I was a physio and a clinical specialist in respiratory disease. And I was pretty lucky that when I first met my now husband, I was able to navigate that career around military life a little bit. It wasn't easy. And I did have to turn down a lot of opportunities, but I was able to sort of stay employed until we started to move internationally and also have children, because in my clinical job, I work very long, sort of 12-hour shifts. And then we moved to the Falkland Islands, where there's no childcare for under twos. And then we moved to Canada, where I can't change my clinical registration. So you can't work clinically or in education, which the two things I did were teaching and clinical. So I had to think outside of the box. I was like, what do I do? I did have the opportunity if I wanted to take some time off, and like I say, at that point we had 3 children under 4. But for me, I like to work. I'm very passionate about what I do. So I reached out for career support to sort of the usual places where I would think to go to. And I couldn't find any. And I was told essentially the best thing to do is stay at home, support the family, and yeah, and that was it really. And I felt very disheartened and a little bit lost and didn't know what to do. And respiratory isn't something very easily translatable to everyday society. um, but then I think it was my husband came home and he'd heard about the Independent Spouse podcast, and I listened to that, and then I heard about Recruit for Spouses, and then it snowballed, and I realized there is so much support out there, like the Forces Employment Charity, like X Forces, the Millspo Business Network. I mean, there's hordes of it, but you can't find out about it. There's nowhere that you can go that can tell you about all the support that's available. So it took many months and a lot of research, and I worked with lots of different people, and I decided to start my own business, which is my global medical journalism business. So I write for companies all over the world, specializing in women's health, men's health, sexual health, and mental health. But alongside that, I wanted to start Career Pursuit, because I thought, why can't we put all these resources into one place, so that other spouses and partners don't have to go through what I had to go through, which is months and months and months of research to try and find any support that's out there. So on a bit of a whim, it was launched from my kitchen table in Canada as a digital only version at first, and then since then, yeah, we've just grown and grown.
Amazing. Wonderful. Congratulations on that. That's
Thank you.
brilliant. And were there any specific challenges or advantages, from the beginning, from the get-go?
I mean, there's a lot of challenges, and I think, the biggest one that obviously we highlighted was being unable to find the support, but it does exist. And how do we reach all the families to tell people that there's loads of support available and there's lots of opportunities? And that's been very difficult to overcome, and we're still navigating that every day to try and grow our reach. We work collaboratively with every organisation that provides any form of entrepreneur or employment support to military spouses and partners. And we also work alongside businesses to ensure that they understand the unique challenges that spouses and partners face when it comes to employment or starting a business, because you're still navigating military life. That aspect isn't changing. You're still moving frequently, still having to deal with deployments. And we've also grown it to have, the event section, all the resources online, so that it really is one single point of access, so that people aren't spending months and months and months trawling for support when you might only be on your next location for 6 months and then having to rethink again. So it's a very simple concept that we just put it all into one place to overcome that challenge.
And that must have been very demoralizing for you, someone telling you, "Oh, you just stay home and, yeah, get on with it." That must have been terribly demoralizing for you.
It is, and I loved my career in the NHS, and I was a senior leader in the NHS, ran teams, set up mission prevention pathways right across the country, working very high level and in emergency situations. And to all of a sudden be told, like, all of those skills, aside from the clinical skills, but managing people, managing emergency situations, setting up national pathways, just to be told that's sort of useless and not to do anything with it. It is crazy, and this is what I see every day. I speak to spouses and partners who incredible skill sets. They have worked in, lawyers, doctors, HR, marketing managers, have had huge careers, have a wealth of skills, but don't feel that they can work around military life because of the barriers that are there. And I think it's actually 60% of military spouses and partners have to change career, but only 7% choose to.
What are your future goals for career pursuit? How do you vision it evolving, to meet the changing needs of military spouses?
So we really want to reach as many families as possible. So if anybody's listening, please share it far and wide, because obviously that's our goal, to reach as many families as possible. Because you never know when you're going to go through a career change. You might be able to carry a career for a long time. I did, for a decade, and then all of a sudden, a different deployment, a different family situation. You never know when you're going to need that support. So we just want to get out to as many people as possible. But also, what we realised recently is your teenagers are also still navigating military life, but having to start a career, and they're still having to navigate deployments or moving around, and and building their own careers. So this year we're going to be launching a new magazine which focuses purely on 16 to 18 year olds, and giving some career advice on how to navigate, beginning a career or a business around military life, and looking at some of the options out there, and also a lot of the military friendly companies that are out there that understand the challenges and have great sort of school leaver and graduate pathways to support sort of that age group on their journey. So hopefully we'll continue to grow more magazines, more support, more information, and yeah, we just want everyone to know whatever support it is you need, it's on our platform. You can find it and it is there.
Hannah, what is next for you? You are now the exited founder of Toddle.
Mm.
What is next for you? Where do you see yourself in the 5 years? Are there any major projects that you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur through and through, and I think that that I've had lots of opportunities since, especially being on Dragon's Den and having the investment from Stephen Barlow and Deborah Meaden. It unlocks incredible networks. So yeah, I've got a few different opportunities available to me at the moment. I'm quite excited that I've been getting involved with some startups. So I run a consultancy where I help startups and scale ups with business development and digital marketing specifically. And I'm really enjoying that because it's really nice to work with a diverse array of people and not just doing one thing. And then I've just started on a board as the strategic growth director at it's a charity, and it's a fintech company. So they're essentially trying to raise as much money as they can for charities through really innovative and practical ways. And I'm loving that. And it's nice to be able to give some time to something so worthwhile when I have all these skills and experience I've sort of accrued and mistakes made over the last 5 years. To be able to feel like I'm helping somebody is really rewarding. And then I'm also a non-exec director for a different software startup. So yeah, I'm just really enjoying using the skills, using my networks to get involved with lots of different things. I think I'll always run a business. I've also started an Amazon business as well. Forgot about that. But yeah, I just love business. I love speaking to people. I like getting into challenges, troubleshooting, building things, giving advice. And I feel really privileged that this is now what I do because, what's to say it would have worked out. I left a really good career in the military. My career was going pretty well. It was safe. It was challenging but comfortable. I worked with great people. There's a lot about the RAF I absolutely loved. So it was a massive leap to leave, and now to have a sustainable career as an entrepreneur is something that, yeah, it's a dream come true, to be honest.
So you mentioned Deborah and Stephen, and how has their support how did that positively impact your business? And, I guess if we're speaking more about the mentorship and the strategic advice aspect of it, how does that help someone start their own
Yeah.
business?
So they're slightly different characters with slightly different skill sets. Obviously, they've both got incredible networks, which, I mean, even in this day and age, there's just no getting away from if you can talk to the right person at the right big retailer or the right exporter, or someone that's done it before you. That's immeasurably helpful to a company. So they've both got really extensive networks. Stephen has a very talented team who have given me game-changing advice in terms of marketing and business development. And quite a few of his team are entrepreneurs themselves who've been there in the trenches, so they absolutely understand. They've got real sort of real-time, real life experience, which is just invaluable. And Stephen has got a real sort of ethos of fail, test, fail, test, fail, test, fail. And I think he's just recruited a head of failure at his company. And I really took that from him. And then Deborah, she's incredibly generous with time. So, if I meet with her and say, here's everything that's happening in the company, she'll come up with all sorts of weird and wonderful ways for growth, thinking through her network, how she can help me. And she's got, I think on Dragon's Den, she sometimes gets sort of pigeonholed a bit as being the sustainability dragon, but she's an exceptional businesswoman and she's obviously exceptionally talented. So I would come to her with several problems, and after an hour, she's unpicked them all. And hey, here's how we've turned that problem into an amazing opportunity for growth. So I felt utterly privileged, and it was very surreal actually, just to be in their company in real life, and on Zoom, however we'd speak. But they were both incredibly generous with their time, with their teams, and I can't thank them enough. Yeah, I'm just because you do hear, oh, do they really help and do they really invest? Well, yeah, the money definitely came into the bank account, and yeah, they really helped.
And Helen, for you, when you started Career Pursuit, I mean, what form of support did you lean on?
That's a really great question because, like I say, I found a wealth of support, but also that can be overwhelming. That then all of a sudden you're presented with all these opportunities for different mentors, coaches, programs, startup programs, and it can take a little bit to navigate through what's going to be right for you. And I think sometimes you can get quite excited at the beginning, want to jump into everything, but then all of a sudden you don't have time to be on every course or meet every coach or every mentor. And, before you know it, you're consumed by that and not actually getting anywhere with your business. So for me, it was, sort of accessing the business startup programs, things like X-Forces supporting the unsung hero to get the basics right first. And from then, I had some coaching as well, just to really get me into the mindset of where I wanted to focus, what I wanted, my sort of niches to be and how to grow. And then with Career Pursuit, it's been a huge learning curve because that's a CIC we're purely run from sponsorship and grants. And that is still a learning curve to this day. And I'm in a mentorship program now, which helps people who run charities or CICs to try and make them sustainable. And I think that's the thing, you're always learning. Like there's always something, there's always a next level. Even when you think you reach where you wanted to be, there's something else, like there's something different, there's something changed, or you want to go in a different direction. So I'm a big advocate of having and accessing and using that support that's available. And there are so many in the military community, free coaching and mentorship programs, which, specifically niche down to areas that are going to suit you and your business. And yeah, I think I regularly tap into different ones depending on what stage I'm at.
Just going into kind of the intersection of military life and self-employment, that is very unique. And military service, as often involves a structured and disciplined environment, with individuals following orders and adhering to a structure. On the other hand, self-employment, though, it requires a high degree of initiative, independence, and entrepreneurial spirit. Hannah, can you share how maybe your military background shaped your perspective on leadership and discipline, and how these qualities kind of influenced your decision to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think a lot of people who are in the military think that they don't have the skills for business, or they don't have an MBA, or if they've not been in the corporate world. In my experience of, living the entrepreneur life for 5 years now and employing people, I would say that one of the key attributes of any serving military person, and whether it's sort of nature nurture, whether these sorts of people join the military or whether it's sort of drummed into them in the military, I'd suggest it's probably a bit of both. Um, is this ethos that you just have to get the job done. So often, as is with any government organisation, you might not have the full budget or the full amount of manpower, but this thing has to get done, and this thing could have a huge impact on people's lives or strategy or important stuff. So I think just that one that ethos of I'm going to get this thing done. There is no in this, and I think that resilience as well. So when things go wrong in the RAF, well, you just have to find a different course of action. You don't give up. And I think when I started my startup, I was in an incubator with I think about 10 other people, and there's one other guy still going, and he's done exceptionally well. And I wouldn't say we were both the best business people in the world ever. We didn't have the best idea, but we just kept going. So if he ran out of money, he would find new investors or a new funding stream or a grant or increase sales somehow. I've had issues where I've run out of money or manufacturing's gone wrong, or these things happen in business. And I've never just given up. I always think, well, we'll change direction. We can tweak the brand slightly. We can change the product range slightly. Oh, there's a pandemic. Well, I guess we're an e-commerce company now. So I think just that ability to never see anything as an out and out failure, and just that resilience and that grit and determination to pick yourself up and say, okay, the course of action has changed. Therefore, I now need to do X, Y, and Z. And I think, yeah, military people make superb entrepreneurs for that very reason.
And what about you, Helen? Military life, as you said earlier, it was frequent relocations. How did the necessity to move impact your ability to maintain traditional employment, and how did that influence your choice to kind of pursue self-employment?
I couldn't work clinically anymore. One, because moving around the world, that doesn't translate to qualifications, but also 12-hour shifts, and I have 3 children. If my partner's deployed or away, there's no way I can do a 12-hour shift and be at a school drop off and a school pickup. And even with all the wraparound care, no one's open that long on a day to look after your children for that length in a day. So for me, it seemed that self-employment, it wasn't actually the route that I wanted to choose first. I was looking to be employed. I was looking to work for specific companies and use my clinical knowledge and writing skills in that way. But actually, that traditional model of working didn't really fit for me. And entrepreneurship just really gave me that flexibility to be able to still run something I'm passionate about and use my clinical skills, but also fit around military life. And I know Hannah mentioned COVID there, which was obviously such a challenging time for everybody. But the one positive thing that came out of it was the world of work changed. And it was actually a brilliant thing for military spouses and partners, because now companies are much more open to hybrid working, remote working, flexible working. And I think that has opened a world of opportunity. And there's a lot more support there in companies to help people be employed on a more flexible basis.
Being a mom is a full-time job, isn't it, itself? So you're juggling a lot of things at once. And how do you think being part of a military family has influenced your perspective on adaptability and resilience and, teamwork in your team?
I think every military family could sit down and tell you stories which make the hairs on the back of your neck raise, and you wonder how you get through some situations. We have similar stories, and I think the resilience that most people in the military and their families build is absolutely incredible, and that is all skills that you take into running a business or success in your employment every day. That resilience is just something really that you can't teach. It is learned through those life skills. And I think it's such an important thing when people are talking about transferable skills. And I hear a lot of military spouses and partners are like, well, I don't know what those transferable skills are. But if you look at the amount of times that you're moving house, moving countries, going into new companies, immediately making an impact, and immediately, able to communicate with different people, different cultures all around the world, there's a huge skill set of transferable skills there that people can use.
And Hannah, have you faced, moments where your military background helped you stay focused and disciplined during the challenging times in your business?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's an amazing book actually that I really recommend, and it's the only business book that I really, really recommend. It's called Grit by Angela Duckworth. I will double check that name. I think as Helen was just talking about, when you've lived through scenarios where you've just had to pick yourself up, things have changed, maybe things have gone wrong. Oh, your husband was due back, I don't know, Friday. Oh, he's now not due back for a month. Okay, right. Well, that changes things. Every time you get one of those little knocks and you get through it, you build your confidence. And I think that's the same with business, and it was certainly the same in the military. You're exposed to so many things that are uncomfortable, that are new. We're going on exercise to whatever country, and I'm going to be taught how to use this weapon. I've got to use a respirator and go in the gas chamber, whatever, adventure training. It just really teaches you, whatever you've got to do in business or in work, to have that confidence and that trust in yourself. And I think the discipline then comes after, because you believe that you can do it. So this thing that you're plugging away at day in, day out, there's that trust that you can achieve it. And I think that's something that was really drummed into me, beyond understanding a balance sheet or the P&L or how to register for VAT. All of that stuff can be difficult, but just being able to, have that resilience to go at it head on, because I've got this confidence, I think is something that you can't, it's priceless. And there's no MBA that could have taught me that. From day one at Cranwell, I feel like I was taught to become a better person, and I was, taught that resilience. And at the time, maybe you don't think it's great. But yeah, looking back, that's when it really started. And it's no sort of surprise, well, I'm sure it won't be to a lot of people who've been in the military, that a lot of us are sat here with companies that ended up being successful. Not easy by any stretch. But yeah, I think a lot of military people make it for that reason.
Yeah. And I suppose it's also just the real, the hands-on real life experience that you gain. That's what you really take with you onto your next adventure and your next chapter.
Yeah. Well, and crucially on that point as well, and Helen touched on this, you move that often, your teams move that often, you have to sort of ingratiate yourself with your team ever so quickly. It's not, oh, we've got years, I've worked with Sandra for years. No, Tim's new on the team today, and I need to get the measure of him, and I need him to work hard on this project. But I don't know what he's about. I don't know what motivates him. He needs to understand the culture of this team. You need to build rapport and really get to know people on a sort of an emotional intelligence level super quick. And I think that EI has really served me well in business. I can walk into any room now, any networking room, on my own. If I don't know a soul in there, I'll know several people by the end of the night, because I'm just so used now to just walking into a room and chatting to people. Same with public speaking. If someone said, right, Hannah, we need you to speak to 1,000 people in 10 minutes. Okay, well, let me know what it's about. On I go. So that was super helpful from the military as well.
At any point in the time of when you were starting your business, or in the middle of, when things were going so well, have you ever experienced a time when you felt, oh, maybe I'm not good at this, or like imposter syndrome, for example? Has there ever been any time when you have felt discouraged?
Yes, all the time. I think that is something that happens continuously, because, like I say, things keep changing. And even when you think you've overcome something or got to, a specific goal, then there's something different. And it might be something, again, that you have no idea about. And business is a consistent learning curve. There's something new all the time. There's a new challenge. You might think you've got everything lined up, and then one part falls apart, and it can be very, very, very challenging. And often you do get those days where you just want to say, that's it, I don't know what to do, I want to give up. And I think for that reason, it's so important to build a network around yourself. And you need to do that in several ways. And I'm involved in several different networks. I have a local business women's network, which I like to meet in person. And that's just people that I can meet for coffee and chat with if I'm stuck with business problems, or even just to bounce ideas off. But then I'm part of other business networks which are specific to my, sort of writing business or the CIC, that I can help with growth. And it's having those people that, whether it be even just a virtual coffee to say, I'm really at a low, I'm not sure what to do about this, that you can reach out to somebody in those networks and say, I could just really do with somebody to talk to.
In terms of the imposter syndrome, I think it's, and you spoke about setbacks as well, but I think that there's a phrase I quite like, and it's something like, letting one setback hold you back is like slashing your other three tires when you've just had one flat. So the only certainty in business is you're going to get setbacks. Things are going to go wrong. It won't be as you expected. It won't be as quick as you expected. Maybe the market changed. That person didn't go for it, whatever. And I think, like I said earlier, for me, often there isn't such a thing as out and out failure. So with imposter syndrome, it's trial, error, adjust. Okay, I did badly at that thing. I need to get someone in who's better at that thing than me, or I really need to upskill myself. So I think imposter syndrome, and Stephen Bartlett talks about this, is a really good thing, because it means you'll probably be the most prepared person in the room because you don't really rate yourself very much, or you're going to be really meticulous or really diligent. You're not being blasé. You're not taking it for granted. So I think actually some of the most conscientious people and some of the best business people have got imposter syndrome. I think the only time it can become a problem is when that leads to a sort of chronic failure of self-confidence, and people don't start, and they think, well, who am I to even start? That's when it can become a real problem. But I think for most people who are out there trying it, failing every day, imposter syndrome is a really good thing.
And were there any strategies or routines that you guys found helpful in maintaining, a healthy work-life balance?
Something that I had to get my head around, because I was employed for so long and I worked set hours, was this sort of idea that, it's successful to work 9 to 5, and that's a great set working day. But the only time I could possibly really take out, if I do want some self-care, is going to be during that working day when my kids are at school. So I had to readjust that mindset, in that working in the evening isn't a failure. That's not a bad thing. If that's given me a whole day off to be able to take some time out to look after myself, have some self-care, take some time away, visit friends, anything like that. And I think it's adjusting your work to fit around your life is so important. And you can't measure success on working a set number of hours or a set working days, because as well, in business, you have busy times where you might be working all day and all night to get through something, but then you're going to have quieter times where you can take time off. And it took me quite a long time to get my head around that, from going a very employed, structured way of working to still being very disciplined, but not punishing myself for working in the evening, and saying to myself, I can go and have my hair cut in the middle of the day, have a few hours out, take some time, look after myself, and then I'm going to be much more productive, work much better, and pick up things. So that was a really important thing for me to learn.
I think on the work-life balance point, that's one of the really key lessons for me. I had this quite rigid mindset of I should be working more than 9 to 5 because I'm running a startup, and this is what all entrepreneurs do that are successful. And I'd say I'm only really getting to grips with that now, where if I want to go and get a haircut, I've now joined a gym, if I want to play hockey, whatever, I need to do it. And actually, I find if I can put, say, 2 to 3, 4 hours of deep work in a day where I'm being incredibly strategic and I'm thinking with a clear head, I end up performing so much better than if I'm just sat trying to slog away at a laptop for 8 hours, 9 hours. And when I was going through investment rounds, the initial investment round, I was working 21-hour days. I was literally getting hardly any sleep. I had a tiny child at the time as well. And that's just not healthy. And I look back, and maybe that was needed at the time, I'm not sure. But yeah, I have now reached a position where I don't need to work all hours. And actually, it's quite nice being at a point in my career where people, pay money for less of my time. And I need to accept that. And I think as a woman, that can be really difficult. I think we undersell ourselves. And I am still, it's a work in progress, trying to work on that 9 to 5 mindset that I feel like I'm a bit stuck in. But if I can make the same money for less hours, then we need to embrace that. And especially women, and dads too, but especially women with, I've got 2 young children. My husband's an airline pilot. I've sometimes have to drop things for my children. And so I do feel like I'm starting to get there with the balance now.
And Hannah, what are some key lessons that you've learned along the way that you wish you knew when you started?
Getting that MVP out there, that minimum viable product. So whatever company anyone's starting, and I made this mistake, whether it's a service or it's a product, you need to get that minimum viable product. So 80% of the thing you want to sell, just get out into the market and test it. I spent far too much time and money trying to get the products absolutely perfect. And then when we did get them out into the market, they just didn't land well at all. Whereas I think if you're going to fail fast, and then have that testing mindset that Stephen Bartlett talks about so often. So that would be my big advice to anyone starting out, is to just, if you're going to fail fast, and get that, get those results from the market as quickly as possible.
And Helen, for military spouses and partners considering entrepreneurship, what advice would you give them based on your own experience?
I think something that is often talked about is outsourcing, and when to outsource, and when do you start bringing in other people. But we think of that with a business head on often, and people are trying to think of things in their business to outsource to so that you can free up some more time. But actually, that outsourcing doesn't have to always be in the business. I think if you're balancing a family, or other commitments, military life, sometimes you need to outsource within the home. And I think we don't necessarily think about those things. And that might be as simple as, okay, maybe we're going to get recipe meal boxes so many nights a week, or we're going to plan and get shopping delivered instead. Or do you know what? The cleaning is taking too much of my time, really stressing me out. Actually, outsourcing that would free up my time to earn way more money in the business. And it's thinking outside of the box that actually outsourcing doesn't have to be in the business. It can be in the home as well, looking at different ways that you can manage your time, free up your time, so that you can, I suppose, it's you can do the $10 tasks, as they say, rather than the $1 tasks. You can, put that time and money into the bits where you feel that's where your skill set lies.
And in terms of going more into, we spoke a bit about networking and support out there. Hannah, you actually you did a course with X Forces. You did a self-employment resettlement course. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I was first leaving the RAF, I think generally there's the main sort of thing that people do when they leave is they go and get a job. So there's the sort of career pathway was quite geared for CV writing and, finding a job. And so I was feeling a bit lost with it, really. And then I can't remember how, and this was many years ago and it may have changed, but I was introduced to the self-employment workshop that X Forces run. And it was so nice to be in a room full of people who, also wanted to set out and run their own businesses. And it was essentially can you survive on this budget while you're setting up your business? It was all very practical, and it really got me thinking about writing a business plan. Where am I going to get money from? And it started to open doors to broader networks as well. So X Forces is an incredible network of people who've all set up businesses, and between us we know probably millions of people. So it's really helpful to just get your foot in the door and start to understand about the basics of setting up a business. So having had no previous business experience, that's what really set me on my way. And they really kindly helped me get my first money into the company, which is so crucial. You can't do anything without money. And it was my first loan through the British Business Bank. And X Forces helped me write my business plan. I think we did about 4 or 5 iterations to try and hone it. So that's how I started out. And I would recommend X Forces to anybody who's thinking of setting off on their business journey. And they'll be honest, they really get you to explore and to self-reflect on whether it's for you at all, because it isn't for everybody. And I think that's as important as getting that business planning, getting that loan in, is realizing actually maybe for now employment is the best thing for me. So I highly recommend X Forces.
And they offer a range of courses designed to support different cohorts within the military community, considering self-employment or business ownership.
Yeah, they also host military and business networking events, and I am hosting one in April. I want to say it's the 4th, but I host some of them. Some exceptional entrepreneurs who run all sorts of incredible businesses host them. So people who have done it. So we're not just, a university lecturer telling you what it might be like. Here's what it looks like on paper. It's really helpful, I think, to just have a chat with someone else who's been there, people who are just a little bit further on than you. Here's the mistake I made. Here's the person you need to speak to. Actually, I found this person was best for that. All that sort of real life experience. It's great for that.
And you can visit their website at www.x-forces.com for more information on how they can support you and your business. Hannah, I actually have a copy of Career Pursuit right here. Ta-da. And as you can see, we've got Hannah right here. And the first couple pages, we've got an article on. There is a featured article with Hannah written by Helen Massy, from battlefield to boardroom. Helen, how can people get a hold of these copies?
It's freely available online digitally. If you go to www.careerpursuit.co.uk, you can read it online, or it is at every Hive or information office UK-wide. Try service. There are hard copies that you can go and pick up from there. You can email or message me directly through the website. We post them out entirely for free. So if you ever want a hard copy, it's completely free to get posted out. And you can also get them from the Forces Employment Charity and the 3 Families Federations, Army, Navy, and RAF. So hopefully that you can get a copy anywhere. If you don't want to read it online, there are plenty of hard copies that you can get hold of. You can message us any time to post one out. And you'll also see us at lots of events as well. So do come and say hi, come pick up a copy. And we're more than happy to get as many copies out as possible.
And speaking of events, if you haven't heard already, the Forces Employment Charity's flagship event, Women into Employment 2024, is actually happening on the Tuesday, the 26th of March at USB in London. This flagship event kind of started as an online experience during the pandemic and kind of has evolved into a live event last year. So this year we are continuing to support women from across the whole armed forces community, welcoming those of you preparing to leave the armed forces, reservists, veterans of all ranks, military partners and spouses, including bereaved family members. So the emphasis of the day will be on channeling your superpower, knowing your worth, and something that's common that we've mentioned in today's episode is overcoming imposter syndrome. And of course, we'll have Hannah and Helen there. So come and say hi. Helen will be in the marketplace. Hannah, you will be a panelist, actually. So, yep, if you're interested in attending this event, you can register using the link in the that is available in the description box below. If not, you can head over to the Forces Employment Charity website and check out our events page, where you can learn more about any of our upcoming events or kind of just understand or want more free support from the Forces Employment Charity. So, Hannah, Helen, any more pieces of advice? I mean, how do you define your own success?
Success is different for everybody, and it's trying not to compare to what other people's successes are, because success for one person might be earning a certain amount, a success for another person might be actually having that freedom in family life. And for me, it's being able to balance military life and family life and still do something that I'm passionate about. But the one thing that I would like to say to people is the military community is very altruistic and people want to support other people. So certainly I know when people are reading through Career Pursuit, there is a wealth of people, contacts, businesses, resources in there. And I think people often feel nervous to reach out to people. But I know anybody that's been featured in our magazine or on our website, in our events, is more than happy to help and give advice to anybody. So I would say if people are interested in a specific business, area, employment, job, like reach out to people. More than often they're going to say, yeah, I'd love to have a chat with you. Yes, I can help with this, or no, I can signpost you somewhere else. It is a really supportive community. So use it. That's the biggest advice I can say. Reach out to people, network, speak to people, and don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, I think unfortunately the stats at the moment for female funding, I've been reading several articles this week just about how poor the female funding space is, and I've been helping a few different businesses through their funding rounds. And the unfortunate thing is, you can read various stats, but I think it's something like 14% of funding goes to female founders. So it's still really hard, even in 2024, when we talk about equality and women are, doing and achieving so much more than we ever have. This, for some reason, is just a bit of an Achilles heel in our economy, and I don't know why it's quite so shocking. But the advice I would say is, what that tends to mean is you need to meet so many more people, and it's a bit like dating, finding an investor. You do just need to go through a lot of volume to find the right fit, because they could predominantly be interested in tech, they could predominantly be interested in a certain region. You might just not be the right fit for one another. So to any females out there, I would certainly say don't give up. Be really targeted with your funding rounds, meet as many people as you can meet, go to as many investor events as you can, have the broadest network that you can have, and you will find your funding. And I think, well, I do know of women who have unfortunately just given up because they couldn't secure it. But that would be my one piece of advice, is just to keep going, really. And it's not you, it's just you need to meet the right person.
Absolutely. Wonderful pieces of advice from Hannah and Helen there. I just want to wish you both a heartfelt thank you for being our guests on today's episode. Hannah and Helen, for sharing your entrepreneurial journeys and shedding light on the dynamic intersection of military life and self-employment. From Hannah's venture with Toddle, Helen's mission-driven work of career pursuit, their impact is nothing short of extraordinary. Whether you are a service leaver, reservist, veteran, or part of a military family, if you're feeling discouraged or seeking assistance in your employment journey, reach out to the Forces Employment Charity and X-Forces. We're here to guide you, connect you with opportunities, and offer free support. We hope today has inspired you and provided you valuable insights and advice for anyone considering or navigating the path of entrepreneurship. Stay connected with Forces Employment Charity, the podcast, for more captivating conversations with remarkable individuals such as Hannah and Helen, and the rest of the Armed Forces community. Thank you both for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for joining us, and see you soon.